Love can become a kind of theft when it begins hurrying past a person's voice. I have lived long enough to know that people can take a life from you very gently. What would change in a family if one person simply chose to wait for the older voice in the room? I did not meet her in a residence office. That matters. People are too quick to think these things begin when a family starts touring pleasant buildings with soft carpets and soup at 5 o'clock. By then, a great deal has already been taken, usually politely. Usually by people who love you, usually one practical step at a time. I met her in a private office above a bank. Not the part of the bank where people line up with deposit slips and birthday cards for grandchildren. This was upstairs. Frosted glass, quiet carpet. Water in a glass pitcher with lemon slices, trying very hard to suggest civilization. The sort of place where lives are reduced to folders and everyone speaks in a low voice as if money and mortality might behave better if nobody startled them. I was there to sign something of my own. That too matters. Age has a way of filling your days with paper. Some of it is about property, some about wishes, some about the possibility that, one afternoon, another hand may need the right to make your life legible after you no longer can. You tell yourself you are being prudent. Sometimes you are. Sometimes prudence is only fear dressed for lunch. She was seated outside the office when I arrived. Her daughter beside her, a legal pad on one knee. 2 handbags between them, though only one woman in that pair still knew exactly where everything inside hers belonged. The mother had a navy coat folded over her lap. Good wool, old, kept. Her lipstick was on a little too carefully. Not fresh, exactly. Applied by a woman who still believed in the usefulness of making a face before one entered a room where one might be discussed. That detail I understood at once. Women like that are not trying to look young. They are trying not to arrive looking already handled. She had a small leather checkbook cover in one hand and her reading glasses in the other. The glasses were open. Her thumb rested on the bridge as if she meant to put them on the moment the assistant called them in. The daughter was saying something into her phone in a whisper. Work voice, apology voice, competence under strain. No, I'm here now. I know. I'll send it when I get back. No, she can't do the app. That's the whole point. She hung up and gave her mother the kind of smile busy daughters give when they want love to survive their impatience. Sorry, Mama. The mother said, You're busy. That sentence landed harder on me than it should have. You're busy. It is one of the first phrases older women begin using when they are trying to make their own life smaller for their children to carry. The assistant opened the office door and called them in. I sat one chair away from the threshold. The door did not fully close. That matters too. Not because I enjoy overhearing strangers. I do not. But because family truth often travels through the careless inch between private and public, where people forget how much they are revealing by how quickly they answer for one another. The attorney's voice was warm, practiced. He had the careful tone of a man who had explained power of attorney to frightened families so many times, he no longer noticed which words bruised and which ones merely arranged. He was reviewing a durable authorization. Banking access, medical decisions if needed, sale of property if competency became impaired, temporary now, broader later if required. Standard language. Nothing dramatic. Nothing on paper that could not be defended. The mother had just lifted her glasses to read when her daughter leaned across the desk and said, with an ease that told me this had happened before, She doesn't need all of that. I've already explained it to her. There are moments so small most people would miss them. Her mother did not flinch, did not protest, did not say, I can read. She only kept the glasses where they were for a second, longer than felt natural, as though some part of her had not yet received the news that the room had begun without her. That was when I started listening, for real. The attorney nodded. The daughter continued. She had that fall in March. Nothing broken, thank God, but still. And there were the bills last month she forgot to mail, and she can't keep up with the passwords, and the property tax notice was unopened on the hall table for 3 days. All of it probably true. Truth is not always the same thing as fairness. I learned that embarrassingly late. The mother said, "I saw the tax notice." Her daughter turned at once. "I know, Mama. I'm just saying you don't need to be worrying about all that anymore." Anymore? There is always an anymore. It arrives before consent, before decline, before the old woman herself has decided what she is still willing to carry and what she is ready to set down. The daughter's legal pad was covered in neat bullet points. I could see them from where I sat when the assistant reopened the door for a courier and left it ajar again. Bank access. Medlist. House options. Jonathan call tonight. Deposit due Friday. Deposit. There it was. Not just fear then. Money, timing, a room or a unit or a retained option somewhere waiting for a decision to harden into paperwork. Families are rarely only emotional under pressure. They are logistical, financial, deadline-driven. That is what makes them dangerous in such civilized ways. The mother laid the glasses down, not because she was finished, because she understood she had not yet been allowed to begin. She had beautiful hands once, you could tell, long fingers, narrow nails, still shaped, though one thumb carried the rough split of a woman who had started doing more for herself again after someone else stopped living in the house. The skin over the knuckles had gone thin and bright. The blue under it showed plainly. When she pressed her fingertips to the paper, I could see the faintest tremor. Not enough to make a doctor nervous. Enough to make a daughter move faster. "I only want a minute to read it," the mother said. Not loudly, not stubbornly, just with the tired precision of a woman requesting what used to be hers without having to ask. The daughter's face changed in that instant, though not into cruelty. That would have been easier. It changed into the face of a woman who has spent too many weeks carrying fear around like a second skeleton. The sort of woman who has rehearsed every bad possibility and has finally reached the stage where delay itself feels irresponsible. "Mama," she said softly, "this is just so I can help if something happens." The mother kept one hand on the page. "Something always happens," she said. "That doesn't mean I want to be skipped." There it was. Not a speech. Not a dramatic line. Just enough truth to make the room ashamed if the room still had any room left for shame. No one answered immediately. The attorney looked at the daughter. The daughter looked at the pen. The pen looked expensive enough to make surrender seem respectable. I know I should not write sentences like that, but there are objects that take sides. A good pen in a good office can be one of them. The daughter exhaled. "You know I'm trying to make this easier." And there, finally, was the wound that belonged to her. Not just love, not just control, fatigue, terror, resentment she hated herself for. She was not trying to rob her mother. She was trying to get to the far side of uncertainty. She wanted authority because authority would let her sleep. She wanted her mother safe, yes, but she also wanted this great, shapeless fear to have a handle. That is what frightened me. Not because it was ugly, because it was ordinary. Love, when it has not slept enough, begins to bargain with dignity. The mother gave a small laugh then, not warm, not amused, the kind of laugh older women use when the alternative would be either tears or rudeness, and they have too much breeding left for both. Easier for who? No one in the room moved. Outside, someone at the copier laughed too loudly at something trivial. The building went on with its business. That is another humiliation of growing old. The private collapse of your standing in your own life almost always occurs while someone nearby is discussing toner or lunch. The daughter looked wounded. I believed that too. She said, "Mama, don't do that." Do what? Make me feel what I am doing. Make me slow down enough to hear it. Make me be the daughter who is tired before I get to be the daughter who is right. The mother's hand tightened on the edge of the authorization form, very slight, but I saw it. "You asked me for my signature," she said. "You didn't ask me for my life, yet." I will say this for age. Sometimes it leaves a woman one blade she can still lift when everything else has become negotiation. The attorney spoke then, too quickly, trying to save the civility of the room. "Mrs., perhaps we can simply walk through it line by line." That should have helped. Instead, it made things worse, because everyone heard in it what it really meant. Let us proceed in a way that keeps this moving. The mother looked at the paper, then at her glasses, then at her daughter. "I am not refusing help," she said. "I am refusing to be hurried past myself." I sat very still. There are sentences that enter a woman late and find whole old rooms inside her. I had spent years admiring orderly outcomes, families who came prepared, children who had the forms ready, people who knew how to compress fear into signatures and schedules. I used to think that was mercy. Not always, not often enough at least. Sometimes it is only a cleaner way of taking over. And because I am not a flattering woman in memory, I will say plainly that I recognize something of myself there, not in the daughter's exhaustion, though that too, but in my old respect for anything that kept pain from becoming inconveniently slow. The mother said nothing after that. That was what undid me. Not the line itself, the silence after. She put the glasses on at last, read more slowly than anyone in the room preferred, turned one page back, then another, asked one question about the section on the house, another about revoking the authority later if she chose. Good questions. Questions a diminished woman would not have asked. Questions the room was relieved by and irritated by in equal measure. At some point, the daughter said, almost pleading now, "Mom will be fine. I'll take care of it." It sounded different then. Earlier it had meant, "Trust me." Now it meant, "Please let me finish replacing your uncertainty with my own." That is the trouble with certain loving sentences. They do not change words. They change ownership. When I was called in for my appointment, they were still at the table. The mother had not signed yet. That mattered to me more than it should have. When I came back out 20 minutes later, the corridor was empty. Only the water pitcher remained, the lemon slices floating there in their little circle of permanent optimism. On the chair where she had sat was a folded tissue, untouched. Beside it, for just a moment before the assistant gathered the room, I saw the reading glasses case, old leather, worn at the corners. The kind that had been opened and shut for years by the same two hands. I wanted absurdly to know whether she had signed. I still do not. Perhaps that is right. Not every story yields its ending to us. Some only leave a shape in the air and ask whether we are honest enough to recognize it. I have thought about the daughter's sentence since. "Mom will be fine. I'll take care of it." There are days I hear only love in it. And there are days I hear the lonelier thing beneath it, the small, fatal speed with which families begin mistaking relief for care. People do not always lose themselves the day illness takes the obvious things. Sometimes they begin losing themselves when everyone still agrees they are lucid, still dressed, still present, still there, yet the room has already started moving faster than their answer. Sometimes they begin disappearing not in hospitals, not in nursing homes, not in the blunt theater of neglect. Sometimes they begin disappearing under decent lighting, above a bank, with a good pen waiting, and a daughter who loves them enough to be afraid, and afraid enough to hurry. And that, I have come to think, is one of the more elegant cruelties age has to offer. To be loved, to be needed, to be managed, and to feel the difference before anyone else in the room is willing to name it.